I've been thinking a bit about learning today, and I think the way I perceived learning, and I think this is like the way we think about learning in general, maybe, is learning is like uh, something active. You must learn something, it is something that you do. However, I think actually a better way to look at learning is to see it as something passive, something that happens automatically. And because, for example, if you read something, then you automatically learn it. If you do something, you automatically gain experience and learn something. But the action is not learning itself so much. The action can be riding a bicycle. And by riding the bike, which is an action of its own, you start to learn it automatically, right? Because it's not, I am actively learning how to ride a bike. Learning to ride is basically something you have to do by doing it a lot. Same goes for learning how to walk. And these are like sort of activities which require, I think, muscle memory. So these are all things that you learn to do by doing, not by actively learning, but by practice. And the learning happens automatically. So passive learning. So how about learning for school, for example? I think that is actually also passive learning. And I always went to school like I need to learn something, and then I would just memorize everything. I would read a list of words, or I make a summary or whatever, and I would actively try to learn it. And it sort of worked, but I also immediately forgot it, whatever I learned. And if I repeated it enough, it may stick around for a bit, but after the test was done, I would forget it anyway. But I think even with learning for school, learning sort of intellectual stuff, the learning still happens by doing something. It's by, if you read something and you find it very interesting and you start to think about it more, you start to read more about it. And when the active part becomes the activity, So an activity like writing, reading, whatever, if you make your focus just acting, then the learning will happen automatically. And I think a mistake I have made is to learn from my mistakes, because that is what I often hear. Oh, when you make a mistake, you should learn from it. Learn from your mistakes. But actually, I think this can be very harmful to learn from your mistakes. And when I say learn from your mistakes, it is the active learning. Because let's say you are a baby and you're just learning to walk, and when you fall, it hurts and stuff, and you cry. But learning to walk, like I said, it is something that happens just by doing it. You only need to start walking, and you may not do it right at first, but learning how to walk is something that happens automatically. But if you try to actively learn walking, and when you make a mistake, when you fall, you may say, oh, I fell. What should I learn from this? And when you actively start looking for what should I learn from this mistake, then you may say, walking leads to suffering, so I will never walk again. And this is like a basic example. Babies don't often think that much about it, but I think you can apply it to any situation. For example, let's say you are trying to learn how to play a new instrument. If you start practicing and you make a mistake, then what should I learn from this? What should I learn from this? And you may learn something right. Let's say I made a specific kind of mistake, and I know exactly what I did wrong, and I know exactly what I need to do next to do it right. Then you can still learn from it, but it is also dangerous to learn the wrong thing from it, because when you learn from your mistakes, you take the risk of learning the wrong things. So, oh, I learned I am bad at music, I am bad at this, I should never do this again, something like that. Or maybe, you learn something else from it that is also incorrect. You see? And just as much as with playing music, a lot of the learning is probably just practicing, doing, and the learning happens on its own. And sure, there are also some tips that you must actively learn, but still, to apply it, you need to just let it happen, basically. Just do it, and let it happen. Let the learning take place on its own. So the last point I have is practice and fun and play. So I think the best way to learn is to make it happen passively, but also to play, to have fun, and to practice, to not take things too seriously. For example, I must succeed, I must make very nice music. If that is your intention and you still need to learn, then you're probably going to get overwhelmed and stressed because, oh no, I failed again. But if you if you make it fun and your focus is on just practicing, you can make mistakes. It doesn't matter. Just have fun and play. I think that's the best way to learn, because it's we also have some of these little kittens outside, and they're constantly playing with each other. And you can see the more they play, every time they play, the more skilled they get. So they're just fighting with each other, they're climbing, they're running around. And at first it is, they're not very good at it. But the more they do it, the more skill they get, the more experience they get. And it's all just by not... The cats are not trying to learn. Oh, I must learn to run around. I must learn to do this and that. They're just having fun. They're playing. And meanwhile, the learning happens on its own. Learning is not something that happens actively, but it just happens automatically. So that was what I was thinking about today. And yeah, see you later.